The Imperium at the close of the 41st millennium can be seen as a realm dedicated to the majesty of the human spirit, a galaxy-spanning empire beset on all sides by foes too numerous and terrible to imagine, its indomitable defenders fighting for the glory of mankind and the Emperor upon his golden throne, or at least from a romanticized point of view. In actuality, the Imperium is a rotting carcass, kept alive by its sheer size and momentum, a shadow of its former glory during the Great Crusade. From an outsider's perspective, the Imperium is a shining beacon within the void. However, when viewed more closely, the light it once bore has faded, with only the maddening abyss being left behind. Space Marine 2 reflects the state of the Imperium, bringing to the forefront the nobility and honor of the Adeptus Astartes, who fight against innumerable swarms of the alien Tyranids and the foul demonic hordes of chaos. Yet for all of the Space Marines' might, their skill, their bravery, the Imperium is still a time of untold horrors, and humanity has fallen far from the lofty heights it once stood upon. In this video, I'll be covering 5 of the more disturbing topics that are touched on within Space Marine 2, be it subtly or more overtly, and exploring some of the grim darkness within the 41st millennium. Let's begin, shall we? Number 5. For over 10,000 years, the Space Marines have defended the Imperium of Man against the alien, the mutant, and the heretic. These gene-enhanced super warriors were originally created by the genius of the Emperor within his underground labs on Terra. Their superhuman genetics derived from the gene seed of the Emperor's demigod sons, the Primarchs. These Space Marines would fight against the myriad of horrors that infested the galaxy for thousands of years, yet things would change at the close of the 41st millennium. The fall of the Imperial fortress world of Cadia during the 13th Black Crusade led to the expansion of the Eye of Terror into the Cicatrix Maledictum, or the Great Rift, and the forces of chaos would spread across the galaxy. Likely, the Imperium would have suffered such a wound that it would have never recovered were it not for the reawakening of Rabute Guilliman, Primarch of the Ultramarines, and the dawn of the Indomitus Crusade, spearheaded by the Primarch and his newly revealed legions of Primaris Space Marines. The Primaris were created in secret by Archmagos Belisarius Call at the behest of Guilliman during the Horus Heresy 10,000 years previous, and were deemed as superior versions of the previous generation of Space Marine, now known as Firstborn. However, it was soon found that Firstborn could indeed be transformed into Primaris Astartes via a dangerous surgical process known as the Rubicon Primaris. This is what Titus undergoes after suffering a mortal wound from a Tyranid Carnifex, and you can clearly see the heavy surgical scarring across his body post-procedure. The Rubicon Primaris is no simple surgery, however, and the details of the procedure are not for the faint of heart. As per the book Imperium Nihilus, Vigilis Defiant, it is an extensive and brutal operation, with the Astartes being cut open from his crown to his heels. His ribcage will then be cracked apart, and, at the climax of the operation, the Space Marine's healing physiology suppressed to the point that his life will slip away. All this is done so that the 3 extra organs a Primaris contains can be safely implanted within the Space Marine's body. This includes the Magnificat, which is buried deep within the brain to stimulate growth and to intensify other organ functions. The Belisarian Furnace, which releases a burst of hypersteroids and corticostimulants when a mortal blow is dealt, so the Primaris may fight on. And the Sinew Coils, cable-like lengths of durasteel that encase every tendon and sinew in a metallic sheath that gives tremendous resilience and strength. When the organs are successfully implanted, the now deceased Space Marine's body is left rent and open to the air as his wounds are stitched closed. When the surgeons are done, they electrify the Space Marine's heart in order to cause it to beat once more. If the Space Marine is then able to claw his way back from death, his Belisarian Furnace will activate and awaken him as a newly created Primaris Marine. While the procedure has become more safe over time, it is still an incredibly traumatic experience, and it is a testament to the enduring physiology of the Space Marines that many Firstborn choose to undergo it so that they may better fight the foes of the Emperor. Number 4. The Tyranids are an extragalactic scourge, an utterly alien swarm too numerous to comprehend. Each individual creature linked together via synaptic network and controlled by the Gestalt consciousness known as the Hive Mind or the Great Devourer. The Tyranids have crossed the unimaginable vastness between galaxies, with the tendrils of the Hive fleets encroaching upon the Milky Way in greater and greater numbers. The Tyranids know not fear, reason, or compassion. The Hive Mind is driven by its one and only concern: hunger. When a Tyranid Hive fleet encroaches upon a world, it does so for only one purpose: to consume all biomatter upon it, to strip it bare down to the crust, draining the oceans and absorbing the very atmosphere itself, leaving behind nothing but a barren, dead rock. To fight a Tyranid Hive fleet is to fight against a planetary extinction event. Untold trillions of alien monstrosities raining down from the sky to eliminate and devour any defenses as spore clouds are released into the atmosphere, poisoning the very air, terraforming the environment, and priming the world itself for consumption. As a Tyranid invasion progresses, one of the key components in facilitating the planet's oncoming doom is a tiny bioform, which we encounter in great numbers within the game: the Ripper. These minuscule aliens, while individually relatively harmless to any trained soldier, come in numberless slithering swarms. While combat is not their primary function, in such significant numbers they can easily overwhelm solitary defenders, even ones so mighty as a Space Marine. The actual function of Ripper swarms, however, is to collect and consume as much biomass as possible. They travel across the landscape, consuming anything within their path so that the raw materials can be brought back to the massive feeder tendrils or capillary towers of the Hive ships. I will admit, while I've known of the Tyranid harvesting process for a long time, it wasn't until Space Marine 2 that the collection of biomass became so viscerally clear to me. I never anticipated the Dead Space-style meat moss that you find covering the walls within the underground tunnels of the Mechanicum research facility, but, of course, it is clear now that the Tyranids would have to collect and store the biomass in readiness for the reclamation pools. These pools are vast lakes of digestive enzymes designed to break down any biomass dropped within into a disgusting slurry of acids, carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and minerals, which are then pumped up into the orbiting Hive ships. Tyranid Rippers, once they have consumed enough biomass, drag their bloated bodies to the reclamation pools. Rather than spew the contents of their bellies into the pools, the Rippers instead hurl themselves bodily into the pools to be digested and absorbed alongside the spoils of the prey planet. For any world that has been subdued by the Tyranids to the point of absorption, the only salvation left would be the apocalyptic order of Exterminatus, the destruction of the world's biosphere and all life upon it. Number 3. As you walk through the halls of your battle barge, incense smoke parting along your path, you'll encounter various figures. A fellow battle brother inclines his head in greeting as you pass each other. A chapter menial bows his head in deference as you walk by, before resuming whatever task he was given. A Mechanicus adept works away at a nearby cogitator, chanting a low binaric prayer to the machine god. But as you continue, you come across a rather odd sight. At least, it would be an odd sight for any normal human. But you, a member of the Adeptus Astartes, these things are more commonplace. And yet, you can't quite shake away the feeling of the unnatural. A diminutive winged figure floats nearby, holding a chain censer, pleasantly scented incense smoke billowing from it. The seemingly angelic little creature at first glance appears as a chubby human infant, innocent and pure, but upon closer inspection, you start picking out the sheer wrongness. of this thing. Instead of the soft, cute form of an infant, you realize its body is unwholesome, corpulent in appearance, its skin waxy and unnatural. Its wings are little more than decorative, implantations that could not actually permit flight. The chain sensor is not truly being carried by the creature, but appears to be surgically grafted to its arms, providing this being its sole purpose. Its face is slack, no sign of true intelligence, one eye covered with a mechanical augmentation. This is a cherub, one of many within the battle barge, and despite its seemingly infant-like looks, your humanity can only pull back in sheer revulsion at the uncanniness of its appearance. Cherubs are not true living beings. Instead, they are a form of cybernetic construct created by the Magi Biologists of the Adeptus Mechanicus. They are vat-grown things, intentionally shaped to resemble the childlike angels of the cherubim, spoken of in ancient Terran myths. Cybernetically augmented, the cherubs have various tools or mechanical parts grafted onto them in order to help them perform whatever tasks they were created for. These bioconstructs also have small anti-gravitic generators implanted within them, which grants them the ability to fly, their wings being merely for show. Being constructs, they aren't truly alive, having no need for sustenance or sleep, being supplied with energy from their inbuilt power cells. Their artificially created cortex and nervous system tend to be patterned off of non-sentient Terran creatures such as apes, birds, or felines. They are implanted with pre-programmed commands that allow them to perform simple tasks for their masters, such as fetching small items, copying text, or reciting hymns. While they are commonplace in many of the Imperium's various institutions, such as the Ecclesiarchy, the Inquisition, the Munitorum, and the Astartes, the average Imperial citizen tends to find them distasteful and unsettling. This degree of fear and mistrust is not unwarranted, however, as occasionally a cherub may devolve, with part of its organic brain being corrupted over time. This can lead to rather unfortunate consequences for both the cherub and any Imperial citizens nearby. Number 2. The Thousand Sons are one of the 20 original Space Marine legions created by the Emperor at the dawn of the Great Crusade, 10,000 years previous to the current timeline of the Era Indomitus. They are the sorcerous scions of the Primarch Magnus the Red, the most psychically gifted of the Primarchs and traitors to the Imperium. Magnus and his legion abandoned their oaths to the Emperor during the Horus Heresy and have since been sworn to the service of the Chaos God of Magic and Change, Tzeentch. Along with the 8 other traitor legions, the Thousand Sons have been fighting an unending war against the Imperium of Man, intent on toppling the corpse god Emperor from his carrion throne, as they would call it. What sets the Sons of Magnus apart from the other heretic Astartes, though, is the vast number of psychers within their ranks, something that has been rather commonplace amongst the Legion since their inception. This is a result of their genetic heritage, the innate psychic talents of Magnus expressing themselves within his gene-enhanced Astartes. All psychers are inherently connected to the warp, the immaterial realm wherein dwell entities beyond both space and time. This includes the gods of chaos and their demonic minions, and it is due to this connection that the Thousand Sons were afflicted with a curse known as the Flesh Change. While many of the Thousand Sons could channel their psychic abilities and perform incredible displays of sorcerous might, many more were consumed with corruption, unable to control the chaotic energies swirling within themselves. These unfortunates would suffer a horrible fate, their very bodies betraying them as they mutated into horrible, twisted masses of flesh. Minds lost to a feral madness as they transformed into monstrous abominations known as Chaos Spawn. Those of you who have encountered the Thousand Sons within Space Marine 2 may wonder at this, for the traitorous Marines encountered show no sign of mutation, apart from the sorcerers, and when defeated they leave behind empty suits of power armor, scattered across the battlefield. This is due to a desperate plan that was attempted by the most powerful of the Legion's sorcerers to halt the flesh change, which was affecting more and more of the Thousand Sons as time went on. Azek Ahriman, chief librarian of the Thousand Sons, saw the rampant mutation that was destroying his legion and resolved to purge them of this taint, purifying his warriors of all corruption. With the aid of his sorcerer's cabal, and without the knowledge or blessing of his Primarch Magnus, Ahriman cast an incredibly powerful spell, known as the Rubric of Ahriman, upon the Thousand Sons. A vast storm erupted from the aether. Coruscating bolts of energy formed from the raw essence of the warp itself, arcing down from the heavens, striking every battle brother of the Legion until only Ahriman and his sorcerers were left untouched. The Rubric of Ahriman had worked. The Thousand Sons had been scoured of warp taint and were free of the flesh change, though not in the way Ahriman had hoped. Instead, an awful truth dawned on the sorcerer. Any of his battle brothers who lacked any significant psychic power were instead transformed into walking automatons. Their suits of power armor magically sealed, their bodies turned into naught but ash, and their souls trapped within for eternity. The flesh change had been halted, but the vast majority of the once proud Legion had been turned into mindless husks, lacking any free will of their own. Now, these Rubric Marines can only be directed into battle by their sorcerer puppet masters, devoid of all life and humanity. It is said, though, that as they march into battle, a faint whisper can be heard on the wind. All is dust. Number 1. Servitors are a form of cyber-organic drone, similar in many ways to Cherubs, though not near as unsettling for most Imperial citizens. Servitors are a fusion of human flesh and robotics, created by the Adeptus Mechanicus to perform simple menial tasks for their overlords across the various branches of the Imperium. They were initially made due to the long mistrust and banning of artificial intelligence, and thus the absence of true robotic servants. Instead, as a way to get around the inherent danger and instability of an AI, the Mechanicus resorted to utilizing mindless, genetically engineered, fat-grown, or cloned humans that can be programmed to perform whatever duty is required. These semi-organic robots are further augmented with whatever tools are necessary for their roles, with many having their limbs removed in favor of industrial equipment, such as excavation drills or even heavy weapons should they have a military purpose. However, while most are artificially grown, some servitors used to be fully functional humans, and were granted their new forms as a type of punishment. Many a criminal or heretic has been handed over to the Mechanicus by imperial arbitrators or judges to be transformed into a servitor, so that they may better serve the Imperium and the Emperor. These unfortunate souls are mind-wiped, reprogrammed, and cybernetically enhanced through agonizingly painful processes. While, in theory, no trace of the individual's mind should be left once the process has been completed, sometimes a part of them remains, and all they can do is internally scream against the horror that has been done to them. In the novel Master of Mankind, the combat servitor has been destroyed by a demon, and a tech adept of the Mechanicus attempts to download data from its memory banks before they shut off for good. The cyborged woman had been thoroughly dismembered, torn apart not by bladed weaponry, but by brute strength. The wounds were rife with etheric signifiers. Alpha Row 25 began the process of harvesting her final cognitions, which necessitated sawing through the brain pan and plunging a data spike into one of her internal cranial connectors. Intriguingly, in all the info feeds that spilled out in numerical echoes of the servitor's last thoughts, there was nothing identifying her warp-born assailant. she hadn't been able to make out any visuals of her killer. For all intents and purposes, AL1410CVI550023 and her cohorts had been firing at nothing. There was more. Somehow, the lobotomized woman's very last thoughts had been of her human life, and the weeping children that had been pulled from her hands as she was hauled away, screaming, on her way to reprocessing. Alpha Row 25 discarded the data as irrelevant, a tediously emotional misfire of a dying, imperfect biological engine. Thank you for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the video. The universe of Warhammer 40,000 is a fascinating one, and while it is full to the brim with all sorts of horrifying and disturbing tales, it still can't help but lure you in with the sheer epic scale of it all. If you would like to see more lore-based videos such as this, then please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to help the channel grow within the dreaded warp tides of YouTube. I hope you have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!